guy.
And by the way, folks, this video is hitting the phones of everyone around Donald Trump and Trump Tower right now.
Fabulous. Roll it.
Trump just isn't the same. You're noticing it now, aren't you? You can see it. He's old, sleepy, confused, weak.
His jaw kept falling on his chest and his mouth kept going slack.
He's not the same man. His energy is gone. No one can deny it.
And Putin, has so little respect for Obama that he's starting to throw around the nuclear word. You heard that, nuclear.
You're learning he cares about himself, not us.
Sioux Falls, thank you very much, Sioux Falls.
We've all had parents who we loved, but who changed over the years. Needed help, needed understanding, needed care.
Including Obama. I'll tell you what, you take a look at Obama and take...
With Trump, it's happening so fast. We can all see it. Now you do too.
I feel like that's kind of like elder abuse, and I'm not even sorry.
You're such an ableist, Rick Wilson. You guys are a bunch of ableists, as the youngins would say today.
As the youngins would say, yes.
No. Look, it is what it is. And here's the thing, too. President Biden and his campaign, they're starting to needle Trump more. They're going after this part of him. They're starting to mock him for this stuff. And because they know it works. It irks him to death. Trump can't stand it. And then it gets him to respond insanely with things like, I'm closing my beautiful blue eyes because I'm listening intently. I'm not sleeping. Like he just
Sorry, Donald. Nobody's buying that line.
Right. Before we go on, can I just say something really quick? Well, actually, I'll wait till the end. So,
okay.
So that's the trial. This thing is going to go on for a couple more weeks, and every day. Oh, Trump was fined. The gag order stuff. We started to talk about that. He was fined a big whopping $9,000. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, but it was the legal limit they could do it by New York law.
But the judge did say that because there is a limit on how much he can fine him, if he does it again, that he could put him in jail. I mean, that's the next step.
I am, as the kids say, here for that.
As am I. Throw him in the freaking pokey right there in the courthouse for a couple hours and time out. Start there.
I know sending Trump to Rikers is an impossibility.
That's not happening. No.
Okay, I get it. I'm a realist. But the idea of Donald Trump going even in MCC or even in the courthouse holding cells for even one night, let me tell you something. He will be reduced to a screaming, crazed bowl of orange gelatin by the time that's over. He will lose his damn mind.
Mm-hmm. And the wig might come off too. I don't know what happens.
I'm pretty sure the wig's going to come off faster than Frank Luntz in a stiff breeze.
Oh my gosh. A little inside the beltway joke for those who know Frank Luntz. Yes. Speaking of in the breeze. So during his whining, like I said, he's been complaining that, this is election interference and I can't campaign and they're trying to stop me, blah, blah, blah. No. Last week when he had days off, he didn't campaign, he golfed. So this week.
He went golfing.
Right. He went golfing. This week, he actually got his ass out on the campaign trail and went to Wisconsin and Michigan yesterday on Wednesday. And
which went about as well as you might expect.
Right. He's back to the greatest hits again, the same shit over and over and over again. But in conjunction with this really alarming Time magazine interview that he did that released this week, it's a cover story. It's called If He Wins. And the writer really went into detail about what Trump plans to do. And here's the thing. A lot of that stuff we've been alluding to and we've been telling you because Trump has been actually seen it in an interview where he reiterates some of the stuff that he plans to do. And some of the key takeaways from this are he won't commit to accepting the 2024 results without violence.
If it's fair, maybe I'll accept it.
Right. The same thing that he's been saying for years. I mean, he complained about the Emmys being rigged when The Apprentice didn't win. I mean, this is a hallmark of his whole personality.
Right.
They're talking about oh yeah, I don't care if NATO countries don't pay up. I'm not going to protect. We're not going to protect them. We're back to that.
Right. We're back to the rest of the pro-Putin garbage.
Right. Back to that. He's doubling down on that. I think the newest stuff here is his immigration policies, where he's saying that he has no problem suspending posse comitatus and using the National Guard to deport millions of people who are here illegally, and setting up camps along the border, and violating all kinds of rules and things to do it.
The craziness of that, if Barack Obama said the same thing about some other issue, I promise you, a billion Republicans would be in the streets with pitchforks and torches screaming for his head.
Yes.
I mean, and it blows me away that the small government party is the party right now that's like, yeah, what we need is to turn the military into a domestic law enforcement organization.
And not
you're not thinking any of this through.
Yeah, not any of that. Not only that, he wants to basically turn the Department of Justice into his own personal Department of Justice and Retribution. Yeah. He said that he'd have no problem basically firing a U.S. attorney that didn't follow his orders directly.
Right.
He said that he would gut the Department of Justice, not fund it. There's something called impoundment, and for people who are political nerds or look on the Hill like I did,
can we go back to Richard Nixon and see how that worked out?
Correct.
The last time.
And that's when Richard Nixon would stop congressional funding, prevent congressional funding for certain departments that weren't doing what he wanted. And Trump also tried to do this. It was a similar scheme when he withheld the security assistance to Ukraine in 2019. That's the more recent time that we probably heard that term. So he's got no problem going back to that. And then, I mean, we all know that a president who interferes with the Department of Justice, which has historically been independent all the way back to like founding father days, that's dictator stuff. Okay. That's the dictator stuff.
Yeah, that puts the dick in dictator. I'm sorry. This is how you end up again. And I want to once again encourage my Republican friends to say to themselves, how would I feel if Barack Obama was doing this? How would I feel if I heard that Vice President Harris had been put in charge of the purity section of the Department of Justice for President Biden? All of these ideas that there is some kind of permissible level of authoritarianism, to my mind, are really disturbing. And unfortunately for all of us, we're in a position now where this is a feature, not a bug.
Correct.
This is a plan, not a postulate. This is what they're going to do. They always tell you what they're going to do.
Yeah, and not only that, I'm old enough to remember when Republicans had a hissy fit because the Attorney General had a meeting on the tarmac with Hillary Clinton's husband.
Yes.
Okay? Like, that is
greatest constitutional crisis of our lives.
Yeah, that's correct.
Really?
That's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And then on top of all of that, when you say that this is a plan, it is. It's something called unilateral executive theory. This is something that has been floating around about empowering the presidency more, giving more power to the executive branch. I'm old enough also to remember when conservatives didn't like that idea of an imperial president. And yet here
the unified executive is very dangerous. Barack Obama is going to make us into a Kenyan Muslim slave state.
Right.
Really?
That's right. And so, like, this is what they're doing. And on top of that, Trump said that this whole thing where he's punting on the abortion issue, saying how, it's up to the states. It doesn't matter. They've been asking him questions because obviously there's been more and more discussion about abortion and stories coming out and states doing crazy stuff. And he's like, oh, no. The reporter asked him, well, what if states like monitor women's pregnancies to see like if they go beyond the weeks or the ban?
That's the right of the state to do that.
He said, that's their right. That's their right. So he's okay with that. So now we're on to monitoring women's pregnancies. Big brother. Could you imagine? Again, I'm old enough to remember when Republicans would flip out about freedom, individual freedom, and big brother government coming in and telling people what to do. But apparently that doesn't apply to women.
Well, Tara, I had a source today in Florida tell me that while they're denying it, there is a little working group inside the DeSantis organization that they've got people doing things like finding out what kind of data could we get from women's period monitoring apps? What kind of data do we need to do for this or that?
We warned them.
The minute you're in that world, you are not in a constitutional republic.
Nope.
You are in some kind of effed up, Handmaid's Tale, Trump world that you won't recognize as the country that you grew up in.
No. And again, this goes back to the cruelty is the point. The cruelty is the point. The fact that Arizona, so a lot of abortion things happened this week too. I mean, all of this stuff is coming together. And I'm actually glad Time Magazine did this story because it really crystallizes kind of like what the Project 2025 stuff is. And it shows the people he's around that are around him that are pushing this, because it's like all of these fever dream, crazy, like political wet dreams he has of being an authoritarian. He's surrounding himself with people who are more disciplined and more policy focused, who are willing to try to execute it for him. So the guardrails that were there before aren't there anymore theoretically in the second term. That's what we're looking at.
Anybody who doesn't understand that the people doing Project 2025 are not the guys with the truck nuts and the Punisher sticker and the Trump t-shirts. These are guys in suits with law degrees from Ivy League universities.
Correct.
Who are smart as hell, who know what they're doing, who are planning and plotting and scheming, and they're going to rip away every piece of liberty they think is inappropriate for you to have, whether that's a woman dealing with her pregnancy, whether that's gay marriage, whether that's your birth control, IVF, all the horror stories that they're like, no, come on, we would never do something like that. They'll do something exactly like that.
They've written it down with how they plan to do it. There was another story this week about talking about like creative ways to use our laws against us. In yahoo.com, there was a story about these people who are running around under the guise of election integrity, crazy MAGA, conspiracy theorists, election deniers, training people across the country on how to use civil rights laws that were put in place to protect civil rights, to challenge election results. So that's what we're talking about. They're out here, and it is some wacky legal theory that is very dubious and probably won't hold muster. But their point is to wreak chaos on the process, because if they get it with one sympathetic judge, it's all they need. They're not going to get that in New York or California, but you get some sympathetic
but they'll go down to the Fifth Circuit. They'll go down to the Fifth Circuit
in Texas or Louisiana,
where that guy will give them any ruling they ask for.
And that's the point. They're saying, like, we're not expecting necessarily win. We just want the courts to review it, and then eventually it'll go to the Supreme Court. Wink, wink, because they believe firmly that this current Supreme Court is going to uphold any of this crazy legal theory shit that they're putting out there. So, folks. We're not making this up. They're telling us.
I wish we were making this shit up, because I could sleep a lot better if this was something we were exaggerating.
No,
but
it's not.
We're not even getting in the ballpark of the range of how crazy this stuff really is.
No. And the abortion stuff, this is just ramping up and ramping up. I mean, this week, like I said, Florida's 6-week ban is in effect. And you've got people, all the horror stories are starting to come out about that now. Women are scared and furious. They don't know what to do and what this is going to look like. You've got Arizona out there. And also there's a ballot initiative in Florida.
Oh, they're trying to walk it back in Arizona.
Oh, they did. They walked it back finally for another vote. The governor today signed into law the repeal of that 1864 crazy abortion ban. But the problem here is that it doesn't take effect until 90 days after their legislature adjourns. And last year, they were the latest legislature to adjourn. It was like late summer. So from now until whenever their legislature adjourns, plus 90 days, this stupid, crazy, repressive abortion ban is in effect. So they don't know what to do. California is helping. They put a program together right now telling women from Arizona, if you want to come to California, we'll help fund it for you. And they're trying to spread the word, since they border Arizona.
Right.
California's trying to help out their fellow state there, but that's awful for women. It's terrible. But at least Arizona had 2 Republicans. That's it. Only 2 joined with the Democrats in the state Senate to pass this thing. And one of them was a woman who talked about her own experience with having a failed pregnancy and needing to get an abortion in order to, she lived and could have kids again, and told her own personal story. That stuff right there is what's going to be the most powerful tool.
I think that's right, Tara. And I think what we're going to see as we go forward, Arizona can unwind this legislatively all they want. The damage is done.
Yes.
People already know what they did.
Yep.
It's not a secret. They know what they did. People are very clear that Arizona passed a bill that was the most restrictive nature on women's freedom that had ever been executed in this country. I mean, they made Alabama look like Vermont, for fuck's sake.
I know. Yeah, no one had gone back to 1864 yet, right? No one had gone back.
Guys. Congratulations on that. That's one you gotta give them props, at least, for being so revanchist.
I mean, even the Comstock Act, it wasn't quite that far back. It's an 70s law, the Comstock Act, which is something else that Trump and his minions want to reinstate, which is basically would make it illegal to ship abortion drugs in the mail.
Or birth control.
Or birth control, correct.
Or birth control.
That's very bad. Yeah, that's right. All of that. So
none of this, folks, comes down to anything that you would recognize as freedom. And that's everything Trump's talking about. Using the National Guard, invoking the Insurrection Act, letting the states suddenly decide on every bit of
women's bodily autonomy,
specifically women's rights.
Mm-hmm.
All of it adds up, I think, to this really dark place and this really grim kind of future that nobody in their right mind wants.
An ad a couple days ago called bans to drive that point home.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did.
Women are dying right now, today, in America. Blocked from emergency rooms because Republican laws banning abortion make women and their doctors into criminals. Laws that ban abortion even in cases of rape, incest, or the life of the mother. The Republican candidate brags he ended Roe v. Wade.
For 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it, and I'm proud to have done it.
Republican leaders brag about how they'll pass a national ban. The states where Republicans are in power keep making things worse. They want to ban IVF, ban birth control, take away women's right to travel, and monitor their most intimate, private information. No matter where you stand on abortion, no one wants women to die. So why do Republicans act like that's exactly what they want?
And I want to couple that with the new ad that the Biden campaign put out, because they've really been hitting hard back at the Republicans and Trump on this, and making sure that people understand Trump's ownership of this issue. Don't let them try to gaslight you into believing that, I had nothing to do with it. It's the states.
Right.
Like, no,
it wasn't me. I believed it. No.
Right. Somebody
put all y'all.
Something that wasn't me. Somebody did a funny meme with that song, Wasn't Me, with Shaggy, right?
Wasn't me.
And it was him, and it was Trump and Vladimir Putin, and it was really funny.
Yeah, I saw that. That was great.
It was pretty funny.
That was great.
But anyway, Kamala Harris has been out on the campaign trail, and everyone knows I'm not a big fan of hers, but they have been using her pretty effectively on this issue. And she talked about the reason why she became a prosecutor, and talking about how the government, I guess her best friend had been molested by her stepfather, and she came and lived with her in high school, and how that inspired her to go into becoming a prosecutor, and that how dare the government come in and tell women what they can and cannot do, or how they can live their lives, or what decisions they should make if they're in a position where they would need to get an abortion from rape or incest or whatever reason. And she was really passionate about it. And I thought, more of that, Vice President Harris.
I have to say this. I mean, look, I think she has improved as a candidate.
She has.
Even in the last couple of months, I think she's found a zone where her passion for this and her clarity on this is
and
helping.
That's the difference. It's
right,
real.
it's helping with the Democratic base. Look, is it breaching out into our world? We don't need it to.
No,
we need her to talk to the Democratic base to get them locked up and fired up, where they have not, frankly, been for all 100 different reasons.
Right.
But it has been very helpful for her to be such a champion out there for all this stuff. And I also think that Donald Trump doesn't have a good VP candidate option that's going to countervail her, because as I've said a lot of times, she's a weird, inconsistent hitter. She's like a 125 hitter, but man, when she goes out to do a grand slam and she pulls it off, it's kind of amazing.
All right, you don't care if it's a walk off.
Watching her gut the hell of whoever the Republican nominee is.
Whoever it is. We're going to talk about that in a second. I just want to show the Biden ad they put out this week, because you said, well, Kamala Harris may not appeal to some of the folks that we're going for, but ads like this from the Biden campaign absolutely do.
Yeah.
Tonight, Donald Trump's new comments on abortion, saying that some states might choose to monitor women's pregnancies to possibly prosecute women who violate abortion bans.
2 years ago, I became pregnant with a baby I desperately wanted. And I learned that the fetus would have a fatal condition and never survive. Because of the new laws in Texas, I had to flee my own state to receive treatment. If Donald Trump is elected, that is the end of a woman's right to choose. There will be no place to turn. We could lose our rights in every state, even the ones where abortion is currently legal. And that means every woman in every state is at risk. Donald Trump took away our freedom. We need leaders that will protect our rights and not take them away. And that's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Those ads are powerful.
Strong ad. It's a strong
powerful. And it goes along nicely with everything that's gone on this week, and the juxtaposition of Joe Biden being the man that is going to help restore women's rights and protect them where they still need to be protected, versus Donald Trump bragging about taking them away. That is a major storyline that the campaign needs to continue to hammer home in those swing states, because it's quite the contrast. And hey, that's the choice, people. That's the choice. So speaking of choices, we're talking about the Veep stakes. I mean, it feels like it's a long ways away, but it actually isn't. It's only
going to be up on you before you know it.
Before we know it. And this week, we found out that one of the women who's been vying desperately for Donald Trump's pick as VP is Governor Kristi Noem. And if you've been living under a rock this week and haven't heard about her autobiography that's coming out, her memoir, where
I killed my dog because I'm a punk.
Right, where she describes in vivid detail how she killed her 14-month-old puppy because it wasn't a good bird dog and it was rambunctious, and threw it in a gravel pit, and bragged about that as somehow qualifying her to make the tough, difficult, and ugly decisions. Rick, I know this pissed you off. It pissed me off. It pissed off both sides of the aisle. This is a rare glimpse into bipartisanship, where everyone was upset about this.
And Laura Loomer are on the same side of a political equation.
And Judge Janine.
Right. And Cat Turd. I mean, it's just look, I as a guy who has hunting dogs and who's had a lot of hunting dogs, and who's believes in the ancient and ethical pursuit of game in the field with dogs. I'm sorry. This was sick. You know what? And we talked about this on one of our chats. When I've had to put a dog down in my life, it's not because it wasn't a good dog.
Right.
It's not because it misbehaved. It's because the dog was injured or so old that it was
suffering,
unable to live its life.
Right.
And the idea that she took a 14-month-old puppy and killed it because it wasn't trained enough, that's on her. That's like saying, oh, my 3-year-old isn't necessarily, keeping all the food on the fork. I better kill it because it's not doing the job right yet. I mean, it's so outrageous. It's so obscene. It's so sick. And I got to tell you, she keeps digging the hole deeper. She went on Hannity last night. It was like, well, I was protecting my children. No, you weren't. You were a lazy, cruel, heartless person who decided it was inconvenient for you to do the hard work of training a dog. And dog training, as you know very well, as I know very well, training a dog is hard work. Getting a dog, getting a dog of any kind, of show dog, a field dog, a hunting dog, to do what it needs to do it takes time and patience, and it takes a human in the equation to do it. It's not from a shock collar for 5 minutes. Right. It's not from yelling at it or pulling the leash back. And everything she told us about this, she wasn't really talking about the dog. She was talking about Donald Trump. She was saying, Donald, I'll kill for you. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll kill whoever you want. I'll do whatever you want. I'm not going to be like that Mike Pence fellow. I'll do what you need me to do.
It's very sadistic. The problem here is that it's, we talk about this all the time, and we don't say this. We don't take this for granted when we refer to 1930s Germany and the way that the Nazis behaved. And, if you watch any documentaries about this and how Hitler rose to power and how people came to support him and who he had around him willing to carry out his bad acts. But first of all, most of it was legal. And it happened in a couple of months once he became chancellor, when decided to it's crazy how quickly it happens. But it's because of people like a Kristi Noem who are willing to do that kind of stuff to further the Fuhrer's desires. There's something incredibly alarming and sadistic about this. And when you're so callously talking about being a puppy executioner and you think that somehow qualifies you to be vice president of the United States.
Like, where did that enter your mind that this is a selling point?
Like, whose idea was that? Because frankly, I think she committed.
Oh, I think I know whose idea it was.
Regardless, I think she committed.
I think it was Corey's idea.
Corey Lewandowski's? Well, I mean, they do spend, apparently they've spent a lot of intimate time together. So maybe this was, I don't know.
I would say it goes beyond spending time together. It's,
I'm trying to be good.
I know. You're much more delicate than I about this.
Yes. Well, but the rumor mill isn't delicate about that. But regardless, I think she committed political suicide here because there's no way. I mean, we all know Donald Trump doesn't like dogs, but this is a bridge too far. And
but Tara,
when you lost Judge Jeanine, I think.
What do we know about Trump? He's not a smart man, but he's crafty.
Right.
He's crafty, and he's going to say to himself, "Do I want to buy this particular problem? Do I want for the rest of the campaign people to be out there howling like a wounded puppy and putting gravestones made out of foam rubber outside of every campaign event?
Yes,
with cricket on them."
Yes, that was the dog's name, by the way. It was Cricket.
He knows better. He knows better than she does, I think, that it's over. And
her, if anyone who hasn't seen her or the clips from her interview on Hannity, she's trying to explain her way out of it. And Ronald Reagan said, if you're explaining, you're losing. And this is a perfect example of that. And she actually tried to blame the fake news media for misreporting it.
I didn't write these words in my book and then defend them on Twitter
autobiography. Okay, like shut up. Nobody's not fake news. You wrote it, you idiot.
I don't know who published the book. I don't know who her publisher is, but man, they must hate her.
Yeah, her ghostwriter hates her.
Hey, by the way, I don't know if the dog story really works for you in the book. Maybe you should not do the dog story. What do you think?
I mean, honestly. So, of course, LP wasn't going to let this go. And this happened actually last Friday. And so all of the Trump court stuff was going on. A lot of the political media was caught up in White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend events. So people weren't really paying as much attention to this. And it didn't get the kind of play it should have initially. It picked up earlier this week after people started to pay attention again. But LP was first out of the gate with putting this out there about how absolutely obscene, absurd, and awful this is. Take a look.
Dog owners know our furry friends can be a lot to keep up with. But when those tough moments come, you have options. Shooting your dog in the face should not be one of them. And if you do happen to shoot your dog in the face, please don't write about it in your autobiography. This has been a public service announcement directed at any Republican who may be considering murdering their dog.
You know?
I suspect that was your idea, Rick.
Who knows? I am but a tributary in the creative flow of this world.
It was pretty upsetting. A reporter had reached out to us about our thoughts on it, and both Rick and I just went off about.
Yeah, we were pretty direct about.
Yeah, I mean, I said, listen, I don't train bird dogs. I'm from Jersey. That's like not a thing. But my grandmother was like a nationally recognized dog handler. Showed at Westminster. Is in like the Dog Show Hall of Fame. I was a junior handler when I was a kid. I got to show at Westminster. My aunt currently has nationally ranked obedience competition agility dogs. She's a great trainer, trained German Shepherds. She was a horse trainer. Like my mom was a vet tech for 12 years. We've rescued 21 cats plus in my lifetime. Both my cat and my mom's cats are all rescues, and so is my mom's dog. So like we are certifiable dog and cat people, and it was just repulsive. And so, Kristi Noem I'm trying to justify her killing her puppy.
Off is the direction in which she should eternally fuck.
Yes. You know who else can? JD Vance, since we're talking about VP possibilities.
Oh my God.
JD Vance is out there now again, him and Tim Scott, which I'm telling you right now, he's never picking mush mouth. But JD Vance was on Caitlin Collins on CNN last night doing this long interview. And I give credit to Caitlin for pinning him down on a bunch of things that he said. He's just such a hypocrite, and he's incorrigible, and he's smug and a jerk. And she backed him into a corner on the January 6th stuff because, we have all this chaos going on in college campuses with this Gaza Palestinian stuff. And so, of course, the right is exploiting this and trying to compare it to January 6th. Not the same. And I just want you to watch this clip of one portion of that interview.
Okay, so you agree that people who break in and vandalize a building should be prosecuted?
Exactly.
Okay, I'm just checking because you did help raise money for people who did so on January 6th, which was, impeding an official proceeding, breaking into a building that they weren't allowed to be in, and vandalizing the Capitol.
Well, Caitlin, I know that this is the obsession of the national media to talk about what happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago on January the 6th.
It's not an obsession. I'm just seeing if it's a double standard.
No, let me answer the question, Caitlin. I mean, look, here's been my basic argument about January the 6th. If you beat up a cop, of course you deserve to go to prison. If you violated the law, you should suffer the consequences. But there are people who protested on January the 6th who have had the complete weight of the Justice Department thrown at them when, at worst, they're accused of misdemeanors. Now, again.
Okay. I'm going to say something to JD Vance. Okay.
I got a lot.
I'll go first. There is a longer part of this because she goes back and forth with him on it. So she gets him to exposes him on the hypocrisy of the January 6th versus the college campus stuff. Right. But then he goes on to say, because she talks about the vice president and the fact that, Pence isn't supporting him. And is he comfortable with what happened on January 6th, particularly with the threats to Mike Pence? And JD Vance tried to act like it wasn't a big deal. Oh, that's absurd. We don't really know if that happened. There really wasn't that much violence. And try to make it seem as though what we saw didn't happen. Let me tell you something, JD Vance. You take that smug, cavalier attitude and stand in front of the hundreds of police officers who were injured that day and the officers who lost their careers because of the injuries that day, protecting your ass from those violent mob insurrectionists that you're trying to call patriots and raising money for and have no problem with Donald Trump blanket pardoning. Tell that to the Secret Service agents.
You say that
Tell that to the Secret Service agents who left messages with their families because they thought they were going to die that day, protecting the Capitol building that you ran from. So JD Vance and all these other people who are trying to act like January 6th didn't happen and that it wasn't a violent insurrection, right. They are incorrigible, hypocritical bastards that deserve to be nowhere near the White House. So that's my message to you, JD Vance.
Listen, JD Vance is the most poisonous kind of Trumpian era character. He knows better. He doesn't believe a word of this. He's such a product of the meritocracy and of Ivies and of every possible Goldman Sachs style element of a hedge fund guy, all these things. He knows much better than this, which makes the lies all the more despicable, which makes the lies all the more reprehensible. He understands that he would not stand toe-to-toe with Mike Fanone or Officer Gunnell or Harry Dunn or any of the other officers that day who were injured in this attack by Trump's people. And he's dying to be vice president. He's kissing Trump's ass so hard, I'm surprised we haven't had some sort of pulmonary problem. But this guy knows better. And that's what makes him loathsome in every way. He is the classic enabler. He is the classic character you see in every single authoritarian movement, the enabler who knows better. He's von Papen in World War II, who says, oh, don't worry, I'll bring Mr. Hitler into the government, and in 30 days, I'll have him marching to my tune. How'd that work out for you?
Right.
It doesn't. This is a guy who does not believe this, but that makes it more vile. That makes it more obscene. That makes it more reprehensible. And no one should ever wake up in the morning and think, wow, that JD Vance, he's a straight shooter. He is a guy who is so profoundly corrupt in this affair that he is willing to tell the most vile lies about a day that should live in infamy in the minds of every American.
Mm-hmm. And just for those who don't remember who JD Vance was before this iteration of him, he was one of the first never Trumpers. One of the first. One of the first.
I still got some emails from you, JD, back in the old file somewhere, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. So it's just outrageous. It's people like him that allowed Trump to rise to the power he's in. And I blame people like him more. I don't blame Trump. He is who he is. I blame the bastards like him and all the rest of them that have enabled Trump. So the Vichy Republicans, as I call them.
They are indeed.
Indeed. Well, on that note, before we go, I just want to end on a little bit of a happier note, a little fun note, because it was White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend last week. So since the last time we were all together, Rick, you didn't go to the dinner this year, but you were on MSNBC covering it for a couple hours.
Yes.
I went to some of the after parties, and because I felt like being swanky, and I appreciated the invites. So the parties are more fun than dinner.
You guys looked awesome.
Thank you. I saw the second gentleman who thanked us for our efforts and told us to keep up the great work. I ran into a couple of other folks out there that were really grateful to the work that we're doing to help save democracy. So that was a good time. And I have to say, how did you think that Colin Jost and Biden did? I'll give my thoughts.
I think for the second year in a row, Biden went in there with this expectation from everybody, including a lot of Democrats. Oh God, how's he going to do this? And he did great. And look, Colin Jost, it was a performance that was kind of, look, Colin's a TV guy and he was giving a performance in front of a live audience. It's a different flavor.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, and I know you more than anybody can appreciate this, the last few minutes of his remarks about his grandfather and about why his grandfather voted for Joe Biden.
The firefighter from Staten Island.
Incredibly moving, incredibly effective. And I noticed it was at that moment that the right wing just absolutely lost their minds about Colin Jost, which tells you everything you have to know.
Right. That means that it was effective, because the more vitriol you get, the more effective you know you're being. Anyone that could be upset with the fact that Colin Jost honored his grandfather, who was a fireman from Staten Island, and one of his last acts was voting for Joe Biden because he was a good and decent man. The idea of decency, anyone who has a problem with that tells you that they're on the wrong side of things. And I applaud Colin Jost for going there, because it was a combination of, his weekend update style. He's not a stand-up comedian guy. So some people said, oh, it was a little disjointed, blah, blah. You know what? It was actually very good. If you watch Weekend Update, then it was delivered similarly. The jokes were funny, most of them. And the Lara Trump joke about she should go back to politics and her singing voice is so bad. He said he'd never thought he'd say this about a Trump and stick to politics. He had some really good one-liners.
Pretty spectacular, actually.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, look, I also think the whole thing of Joe Biden once again being self-deprecating, being funny, being witty, having the perspective he has, having the understanding that the elephant in the room is that he's 80 years old.
Right.
All those things, if he tried to hide it last year or this year, it would have come across wrong.
Of course.
But instead, it came across rather effortlessly, I must say, as self-deprecating, as warm, as funny, as smart, and he did fine. And once again, as I pointed out the other night, as a lot of people did, Donald Trump never went to the Correspondents' Dinner after Barack Obama roasted his ass.
That's right.
Because he was afraid.
That's right. He can't take mockery.
Because the tough guy is not a tough guy.
No.
He's a mewling PAB of the First Order. And everybody knows what I'm saying. The guy is a whining baby.
Yep. Well, Donald Trump said that. He said, "I'm an adult running against a 6-year-old."
Yeah.
So, right? He said, he stated the obvious. And in conclusion, I think also that the mixture of Colin Jost's jokes and the seriousness of the importance of decency and how we should go back to that in his grandpa's story, which was great. But Joe Biden also, which I noticed as someone who's done political communications for many decades, they kept his remarks really shorter than last year and shorter than the past. Noticeably brief, which is good because that's how you manage it. You don't want Biden to start kind of going off it too much off script and off the reservation. Like, keep it short, sweet. Brevity is the soul of wit. And I think he nailed it. And in that brief time, he took the opportunity with all of those media folks in the room to say, guys, I'm not telling you to put your thumb on the scale, but you need to stop with the horse race stuff. You need to explain to people.
This, I think, was one of the most important moments of the night, Tara.
The stakes.
Because
that's what matters.
We said, the Jay Rosen quote is really important.
Yep.
Talk about the stakes, not just the odds.
Correct.
Because the stakes are enormous. And he was correct in pointing those out. And I think it also neutralized some of this sort of like media grumpiness about the New York Times and Biden are having a feud. I'm sorry, guys. This isn't goddamn rap beef. It's the future of democracy.
That's right. Grow up, New York Times. Come on, you guys. You're better than that. You're supposed to be the paper of record, and you're like whining about the fact that you haven't had enough access to Biden or he hasn't done interviews with you. Like, cut it out. So instead, you're going to run with a bunch of stories about him being old and reinforcing that. Meanwhile, you've got a freaking lunatic who wants to dismantle our Constitution and send women's rights back to the Puritan days of the 1800s. And everyone seems to be just okay with that because they're not getting the interviews they want. Stop it.
Yeah, I think that he really. I think that particular message, it may take a while more to sink in, because there are a lot of people who believe that in the spirit of being even-handed and fair, that treating Trump and Biden the same is objective, when they're not. They're categorically different.
Yes.
They are not the same kind of creature. They are, Biden is a pretty straight up the middle, center left Democrat of the old school. Donald Trump is an anarchist and a nihilist and the most dangerous man to ever run for president. I mean, and these are things that are not debatable. They're not arguable.
Right.
They are what they are. He is what he is. And so I think it's incumbent upon Americans to be very direct with themselves and direct with their friends in the media about what's really going on here.
Yes, it's the media's responsibility to inform the citizenry honestly. That's what they need to do, honestly. The stakes are too high to be messing around with access journalism and telling both sides of a lie. As Stuart Stevens says, we're under no obligation to do. So on that note, folks, that is it for us this week. We will see you next week, same time, next Thursday.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Same bat channel. We'll see you next week on Thursday, and God knows what happens between now and then, but we'll be here to break it all down for you.
And by the way, folks, stay tuned tomorrow at the Lincoln Project, because if you think the diaper stories have been funny so far, just wait till tomorrow.
I can't with you guys. Good night.
We are living in, demonic and despotic times.
And they're keeping me in a courtroom that's freezing, by the way.
Instead of basking in the Florida sun, Trump's trapped in a Baskin-Robbins. He's freezing.
I'm going to sit in a freezing cold icebox for 8 hours, 9 hours or so.
I mean, what? What?
And I'm going to go into the icebox now.
They could bring Bigfoot in as a witness, and Trump would be fine for saying Bigfoot's real.
The USA Revival pillows, the My Pillows, these are the best little pillows ever for your for back for support, for laying on.
By the way, God is far right. Never forget it.
And the former president can't even watch Melania blow out her birthday candles. Although the former first lady seems like she skips dessert, but
this is Joe trying to eat a bite of salad. Just watch. Watch. This man has a nuclear code. Look. That's the problem.
Showers are terrible for you. They're awful.
Huh?
Wait, are you serious?
They are. Oh, I take showers if I'm going to be around people. But this is why you live on a farm.
We are the church, and we run the state. Even if they don't believe it to be so, it is a fact.
I could totally see myself accidentally killing my wife because I just get mad.
This is connecting with Black America because they love sneakers. They're into sneakers. They love this is a big deal, certainly in the inner city.
He goes to a bodega, they cheer him. He goes to a Kentucky Fried Chicken or whichever, Chick-fil-A, and they cheer him.
When Donald Trump visits a bodega in Harlem, that's not manufactured either. Whenever he visits a Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, not manufactured.
This man is a hero.
I think everybody has made their own assessment of President Trump's character, and so far as I know, you don't pay someone $130,000 not to have sex with you.